everybody. Welcome back to Challenge the Call with Max and Avery. I'm your host, Max.
And I am Avery. How are you guys?
We have a little bit of a special guest today. Liam over there. Say hi, Liam.
Liam! He's got the right
now. But Liam's going to be on with us today as Avery has to watch him. He's been on before a little bit, but he'll be a little featured today. So we'll get right into things with we have football again. XFL. XFL officially started last weekend. I watched part of a game, not even technically the entire game. But Avery, did you watch any XFL last weekend?
Yeah, I watched the Seattle Sea Dragons and Ben DiNucci. There's a funny story behind Ben DiNucci. Me and Max, a couple years back, we were watching a Cowboys game. Dak Prescott was hurt. Cooper Rush was hurt. And I'm like, they're going to beat the Giants. The Giants suck. And he's like, who even is this Ben DiNucci guy? And I was like, don't worry. He's good. He was good in college. And he came out and probably had one of the worst performances as a starting NFL quarterback.
Avery would not stop screaming, Ben DiNucci! Just every time something had good or bad, he was just, Ben DiNucci! I was like, oh, I was so upset. I was like, this guy sucks.
But the cool thing is he is tearing it up in the XFL right now. He's 1-1. But, I mean, him and Josh Gordon, he had a really nice play yesterday, 2 days ago, on Thursday night. And he had a really nice play that, like, signified, like, a Patrick Mahomes, like, Tyreek Hill type play. It was, like, one of those shovel passes. And it was impressive. But he's been performing really well.
Yeah, the game that I watched was the St. Louis Battlehawks and the San Antonio Brahmas. That was an absolutely wild game. We'll get into some of the rule changes later on, but I was just... It's so weird to see how different it is compared to the NFL, some of the different things that they can do.
For sure. You know what I thought? I was watching that game also, and I saw Hines Ward, the head coach of the San Antonio Brahmas, and I thought that was really cool because Hines Ward, a Hall of Fame wide receiver for the Steelers. And another quarterback that I'd like to talk about that is making significant improvement is A.J. McCarron. Like, A.J. McCarron was a longtime backup in the NFL, kind of like that Josh McCown type. And he's balling out he's actually the leading passer right now in the XFL with 374 yards and 3 TDs and no picks through 2 games. So I think it's really cool just seeing some of these guys. There's a couple other, but yeah, I think that was really cool just seeing this.
For sure. Going back to kind of our Ben DiNucci type take, I wanted to ask you a question because when I first started the game, when I first turned it on and was watching like the first quarter or something, a part of me in my head thought, wow, this is such bad football. Like, I was watching it and there were just some dumb dropped passes, some stupid incompletions, and I was like, wow, this literally looks like a bunch of children playing football. Like, that's just what I thought in my head. I was like, it's a step up from college, but it looks like it's a step down from college, and I couldn't wrap my mind around it. I was like, why does this look so awkward? Later in the game, it did start looking better. Like, it did start, like, I think it was just very first game, first season, you know, they were kind of had to get adjusted to it. But I think the biggest thing was that when I thought about it again, the players in college are the NFL players mixed in with the not NFL players. But when you get on to the XFL, you've removed all of the super talented NFL players, and I think that's kind of why I thought it looked like a bit of a step down. What were your thoughts on that? Did you think it looked a little awkward at all?
So I wouldn't say like I think a lot of these players are still talented. This is a semi-pro league, and Liam agrees. But what I would say throughout is they didn't have preseason. They didn't have preseason to get all these kinks worked out. They're still trying to learn the playbook. I think they reported in the end of November. So that's when the draft was. And so I feel like when you got 2 months and it's a brand new team, it's not even veterans coming back to play for them. It's a complete brand new team. And when you have that type of team, it's going to take time for it to mesh and look pretty. And
that's kind of where I landed later out. I came back in third, fourth quarter, was kind of oh, okay, some things are happening now. This looks fine. Initially it just looked so rough. I was like, wow. That there were 2 or 3 times in a row I feel like I watched a tight end or a running back or something get hit in the hands on an angle route and just completely throw it to the ground or pop it up or something. I'm like, dude, come down with that. It hit right here.
Yeah. Well, and then the one thing that I wanted to mention too is the refs are really lenient with a lot of penalties in the XFL. I loved seeing hard hits. I feel like you don't see hard hits in the NFL as much anymore because NFL players are scared because they're going to get fined, they're going to get flagged. The XFL wants hard hits. That's why they're here. That's why it's called the Extreme Football League. That's what it's.
I was just going to say, I'm like, that's its whole brand. That's the name, baby. XFL, Extreme Football. They got to be hard hitters. They got to be going out and killing it. I do enjoy it too. I love it.
For sure, man. I just think it's really cool just seeing another league. And on the opposite side of everything, I think there's a couple of actual Iowa boys that are playing in this. Right now, Hakeem Butler for the St. Louis Battlehawks. He has 93 yards on the season, and he's the second go-to receiver for A.J. McCarron. So I think that's really impressive right there. Just seeing these guys that were drafted and it might not have worked out in the NFL. Just seeing them get a second chance, because I guarantee if you play well in the XFL, you're going to get another opportunity in the NFL.
Oh, definitely. This is like you said, semi-pro. So this is kind of your shot. Hey, you played your 4 years of college, didn't quite get drafted yet. Maybe you're not quite there to being a free agent or a sign-on or whatever. So hey, this is a great opportunity to give yourself another opportunity just to say, hey, here's what I can do against these other, semi-pro, more talented people. Maybe in college you weren't going against the greatest of talent. Of course, like I said earlier, you have NFL and non-NFL kind of players mixed together. But I still think now that after seeing kind of the third, fourth quarter, things started to get better again, I do think that this is still going to be a higher level than college. This is still going to be just a little bit of a half step up from college football, but I'm excited to watch some more. Hopefully I get a little more into it. I've only watched that part of a game. I haven't watched any of the games from this weekend, and I'm not necessarily planning to. Are you planning to watch any of the games that are coming on this weekend?
I watched one yesterday. I actually watched St. Louis again. No, I'm sorry. It was Seattle again. And Ben DiNucci. I watched one yesterday. They ended up losing. Liam watched it with me. But I'll probably tune in today. I mean, I got nothing else really to do today. I'm just at home. So I'll probably just kind of tune in today and see what's going on and see some other teams. But I wanted to mention one more thing with just the teams in general. The Las Vegas Vipers, that's the game I watched yesterday. They had the Super Bowl turf field in a rodeo stadium, and there was slips after slips after slips. And I don't know, that field will not be in the NFL, I don't think, for much longer, because it's just a safety hazard.
Yeah, if you can't have players slipping around on a field like that, that's just, aside from, like you said, creating kind of like a bad game or like they can't perform to their elite level, it's a hazard. Like it's a safety issue. Like if they slide at the wrong time when they think they can put a foot in the ground, that's going to create injuries, and that's one thing the NFL is huge about, is avoiding those injuries. So they definitely can't let that happen. I, for one, am not going to be watching anything today. I got some other sports things going on. I got a cousin who's got a soccer game later on. I have an intramural basketball game myself. Us coaches have a team going, so I'll be a little bit busy. But some of the things I do want to talk about from the game that I did watch and stuff, the difference of rules. I kind of want to go through some of the rules that are different in the XFL compared to the NFL, so you guys get a full idea. Some of them are absolutely wild, and we'll ease you into some of the more extreme rule changes throughout the list. They'll just get crazier and crazier and crazier as we go down. But first rule that's different. 1 foot inbounds is a catch, same as college. What are your thoughts on that rule? Do you like 1 foot down? Do you prefer to have the 2? What do you think?
I'd prefer to have the 2. Especially if they want to make this kind of like, which this is not their goal, but it should be their goal. They wanted to make it like kind of like a minor league system. I feel like it needs to have the same specific rules, especially for catching for receivers, as college or as the NFL.
Yep, and I know we've talked about that before. We've talked about the possibility, which we'll have a further discussion about it later, I'm sure, but the possibility of doing relegations and promotions in football using the XFL and the NFL as our 2 major and minor league systems.
Yeah. And so I just think like if they could like just keep everything consistent, it would make it everybody's life easier, especially because this is nobody's goal, like to stay in the XFL. I hate to say that, but it's nobody's goal to stay in the XFL. There's one more thing I wanted to mention. Like I know the USFL is coming up in the summer. Why? And they have 8 teams also. The XFL and the USFL just need to combine leagues.
They should just merge, become one 16-team league. It'd be more games. It'd be more, I don't know, more different competition. You'd get different styles out. It would be more similar to the NFL. And I think that would have to happen first before we got into any relegations or promotions, is those leagues would have to combine so that they could at least be somewhat more similarly sized to how big or how many teams are in the NFL. Unfortunately, as far as your rules go, they only get weirder and weirder. Next one we have deals with overtime, so that one's a little whatever. I haven't seen this yet. We'll see how often it comes across. But the overtime rules in the XFL. Each team gets 3 attempts. They alternate back and forth for a 2-point conversion. That's from the 5-yard line trying to score. They get 3 attempts. Each team gets at least 3, but if it's all tied up, like if both teams score all of them or score the same amount of those 3, then it just keeps going back and forth until somebody wins. So kind of like college from the 25, except you don't get 4 downs. It's a one-time, like, hey, you get 1 play 3 times. You have to stop 1 play 3 times. Who's better?
I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. I mean, I like the idea and the aspect of it, but like, and I don't like the NFL's OT rules either. If anything, I think everything should be like college, like with the OT rules. I think college overtime rules are amazing.
I fully agree.
And so, like, if they could just, like, because this is similar to college overtime rules in a sense, but I think they need to stick with college OT rules, especially for this league.
Yeah, I love the way college does overtime. 25-yard line, just like a normal gate. You get your 4 downs, whatever. I love the college overtime rules. I've always wished that the NFL would do it that way. I like that this is more similar to those college overtime rules, but like you said, it's just a little off. It could use a little bit of tweaking to actually fully get there to being the same, or at least more similar. Next rule we have changed, the third rule. This one is this is the first one that's gonna knock some socks off out here. You can have 2 forward passes in one play. The one stipulation is the initial forward pass has to remain behind the line of scrimmage. So this is like if I was throwing a swing pass out to a running back and they were still behind the line of scrimmage when they catch it and everything, they could throw it again forward to somebody else down the field. What do you think of that one?
I absolutely love this. I feel like this would revolutionize RPOs. This would revolutionize bubble screens. This would revolutionize swing passes, like you mentioned. There's so many different aspects that you could do with this. And I know we've mentioned it before. This could revolutionize a dual quarterback system. Because in that aspect, if you have a quarterback like Justin Fields and pair him up with like a quarterback like Taysom Hill, that revolutionizes the quarterback position and having a dual quarterback system. And if it works in any league, it would work in the XFL. Because
this is almost like the perfect fit for, like you're saying, having a 2 quarterback system. This almost makes it so that the old breed of quarterback and the new breed of quarterback could be on the field together. Like you'd have a quarterback like a Tom Brady or something, pocket passer, standing in, whatever, not super mobile. And then you'd have a guy like Justin Fields, who would be more of your running back type quarterback who can take off, who can catch a pass and he can go with it, or he can pull up again. He can throw it somewhere else. He can do all that stuff. It could create a lot more passing positions, i.e. quarterbacks that are a little bit of a hybrid running back quarterback, and they would not be the only ones on the field. I kind of like it. Just for anyone wondering, the first pass, if it goes incomplete, it is an incompletion. It's not like you fumble it if you don't catch that initial forward pass. The ball does not have to cross the line of scrimmage. It's still an incompletion. It's not ruled a fumble. I think that's a super important thing to note there. My other thing with this is just, as a culture, like American sports culture, we very much value scoring in offense because that's entertaining. That's where our entertainment comes from. I had a class on this in college. That's what people like to see. They like a lot of scoring. They like a lot of offense. That's why soccer is not as popular as the sport here, is because it doesn't score super often. And so the rules that we see changing kind of drive offenses to be more successful, kind of drive more scoring in the game. So like you said, the NFL adopting this, I think this does that. Because all it does is, like you said, make a harder time for the defense and more opportunities for the offense to get down the field and score the football.
I think it's a defensive nightmare also. Trying to, like, you already know, okay, like, if they swing it out, it's going to be a screen. But imagine having a player like Taysom Hill or Justin Fields on the outside that you swing a bubble screen out. Or, no, even all three. You do an RPO, fake it to the running back, swing a bubble screen out on an RPO action that's still behind the line of scrimmage. Then you have your receiver on the other side, your X or your Y, running down the field. And so, like, I really like that. I mean, it's definitely a defensive nightmare, but I think it's a really cool idea, and I'm glad they're actually experiencing it in live games.
For sure. Getting into our fourth rule here that we have for you. Points after touchdown. The way that it works is we have 1-point conversions, 2-point conversions, and 3-point conversions. The way it works is there's no kicking whatsoever. A 1-point conversion takes place from the 2-yard line, 2 points takes place from the 5-yard line, and a 3-point conversion takes place from the 10-yard line. I kind of love this. I kind of love that there's, first of all, just a way to score 3 points. I forget who it was, but I just remember there was a coach. I don't even remember if it was college or NFL. I just remember hearing this story of a coach that went for 2 every single time. And in an interview, he was asked, hey, why do you go for 2 every time? And his answer was, because you can't go for 3. And I just, the minute I saw this, I thought of that guy, and I was like, oh my God, he would be going for 3 every single time in this league. I think that's hilarious. But I low-key love this. What do you think?
No, I love that. That guy you're mentioning of is he coached Presbyterian College down in Texas, D1 AA. He actually got fired after 1 year, unfortunately. But because his
going for 2 every time is probably not the most successful way to have a team, but
but if anybody in the NFL could do it, Andy Reid, the Chiefs, I guarantee Philadelphia with that quarterback sneak. Like, every time, they could easily go for it. But no, this rule, man, I love this rule too. I don't think it would adapt well in the NFL. I feel like the NFL, it would be too clunky. But like in a startup league like this, I really do think it's like the perfect opportunity to experience it. Because I know like a 9-point game, like that's a 1-score game in this league. 18-point deficit, that's only a 2-point game or a 2-possession game. That's insane to me.
Yeah, and we'll get more into the, like what you said, down 9, 1-possession game type thing later too with our last rule. Did you have something else to say on this?
No, go ahead.
All right, I was just going to move into our next rule that's kind of in between what I'm talking about, but let's get into the kickoffs a little bit. The kickoff is another majorly wonky one with this league. So they kick off from the same position, I believe. They kick off, from their own 35. But the kicking team stands on the opponent's 35. The receiving team lines up on their own 30, so they're only 5 yards apart. And when the kicker kicks the ball, nobody moves yet. Nobody moves until the returner touches the ball or the ball hits the ground and it's been like 3 seconds. I think it has to be like 3 seconds of no one touching the ball after it touches the ground that they can move. But I think this is their attempt to kind of safe in or like make kickoffs a little less collision oriented, hard hitting. It's just so weird to watch the ball get kicked and go in the air and everyone's standing there not moving, just kind of like waiting for that returner to catch it. What were your thoughts on these like weird kickoffs?
I hate this rule. I don't like it. I mean, you're taught from an early age, if you played football, what the kickoff regulation is. It does not change from JFL or like Pee Wee football to the NFL. It does not change. And so like just seeing this like whole new formation, it throws me off. I mean, it seems easy enough, but where's the gunners lineup? There's no need for gunners. There's no need for other positions. Like, I feel like to me, it doesn't make any sense. And for me, if I was coaching this, I would just put offensive linemen in against the line for my kick returner. I feel like that's such an easy, like, because guess what? 5-yard running start. Yeah, they might be able to juke pass and then it's a washed play. But at the same time, if you get a hold of them as an offensive lineman, that's it. Like, that returner is good.
That's a lineman going against a linebacker. Yeah. Like 5 yards away from you, work to the level up. Like, yeah, that's easy. That's easy work. This is the one rule that I don't really care for. Like you said, a part of me kind of loves all the others to some degree, but this is the one that I just, like you said, nobody does this. This is just weird. I don't even see how it's that, like there's still a bunch of collisions happening. I don't even understand how this is that much safer. Like, you still have a guy doing his best to take off at full speed. Because how many yards do you think it takes, I shouldn't say an NFL player. How many yards do you think it takes an XFL player, a semi-pro football player, to get up to full speed? Not that many. By the time that they're reaching the returner still from the 35-yard line there, they're still full speed. They're still going to hit. We still saw some collisions happen. I don't fully understand how this is making anything safer on that regard. And yeah, I'm just not a fan of it.
Well, and so I just looked it up, and it is used in the Canadian Football League. the same positioning. So I mean, that's probably where the XFL got it from, is the CFL. But we're not in Canada. We're not in Canada.
Yeah. That does make a lot of sense, though, because The Rock, Dwayne Rock Johnson, is the one that owns this XFL, and he played in the Canadian League, so I can very well see where he was like, hey, we're trying to make things weird. Let's do this on kickoff, you know?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it. Not a fan. And I don't know. They could get rid of it.
But moving on to the last kind of rule change I have here that also deals with kicking off. And this is the one that I watched in that Battlehawks Brahmas game that I thought was absolutely wild and insane. So first of all, I don't know. First, what I'll mention is, like you said, that one possession game, that 9-point game, the Battlehawks were down 9 points to the Brahmas with, like, I forget how long left. It was under 2 minutes or something like that. But they were down by, actually it might have been 10. They were down somewhere in there. But what they did was they did score a touchdown. They went for that 3-point conversion and they got it. So they either tied up the game or only had a one possession game following that, something like that. I forget the exact score. But they did that 3-point conversion and tie up the game. Part of me kind of loves it. Part of me is like, that's weird. You shouldn't be able to do that, but it's whatever. The new rule that I'm going to mention here, I forget what the time is, but, it's in the fourth quarter. I have it written. In the fourth quarter, if you're the down team after scoring, instead of doing an onside kick, you have the ability to do a 4th and 15 attempt from your own 25-yard line. And if you convert on 4th and 15, you just keep moving down the field. And that's exactly what the Battlehawks did. They went for 4th and 15 from their own 25. They converted it. They continued to drive down the field, and they scored again to win the game. This one, I have a little mixed feelings about this one. I'm not sure if I love it or hate it, because I think an onside kick is plenty good enough opportunity to, like, hey, get the ball back, try an onside kick, whatever. It's risky on your front as well because you could give them the ball around the 50-yard line, whatever. 4th and 15 is hard to convert, but also, like we were kind of saying, if you have an Andy Reid type offense or like an old Bill Belichick type offense, even Aaron Rodgers, 4th and 15 is not super outlandish to think, hey, we could get this maybe 7 out of 10 times, you know? So what are your thoughts on this last kind of onside kick replacement rule?
So onside kicks are extremely hard to recover. NFL, college, high school, like I think it's less than like 4% chance of getting an onside. A article I read, I think a 4th and 15, dependent on the team, is like a 30% chance. So I like it, but I think it needs to be to the same skill level and capability as an onside kick. So instead of 4th and 15, I think it needs to be like a 4th and 25. And then and then it could like eliminate, okay, because like a 4th and 15, even how shitty our offense was last year in Chicago, we could have converted a 4th and 15 at some point. We would have. Mm-hmm. Like Justin would have broke down and ran, or for some reason Cole Kmet would have been open down the middle. Like, I feel like even as shitty as your team is, I think you can. And so, like, just the capability of being able to get a 4th and 15 with this game and how revolutionized it is with passing now, I think 4th and 15 is too easy. So I like it, but at the same time, I would definitely like the capability of and what if you score on the 4th and 15? How does that work? Like, what if you end up scoring a touchdown on the 4th and 15? Do you know, like, what happens? Is that a touchdown or is that
it's a touchdown.
Okay. So
it's just like, so if you convert the 4th and 15, that's you just continue driving. It just goes straight. Like, if you convert and you get to the 50, that's where you're at. Ball spotted at the 50, you just keep driving. You score a touchdown and it'd be the same principle. You just keep going with the game from that spot, and if it's a touchdown, it's a touchdown.
Man, imagine a team down by 3 like 3 possessions and they convert 4th and 15 all 3 times. That'd be insane.
Exactly.
Yeah, no,
That's
like, but at the same time, like, I think it should be like a 4th and 25. Definitely.
And that is the one thing that I have a little bit of an issue with this rule. I love the thought of it. I love the wildness of it. A part of me was like, holy crap, you go for 4th and 15. What if you don't get it? You don't get 4th and 15 at the 25 and the other team's already in the red zone. Like, they're already kicking a field goal to seal up the game. Like, it is a risky move. But a part of me, like you said, teams with super, super high caliber offenses and very, very minimal defenses, I think it tips that scale a little bit too much. Because if you have an absolute kick-ass offense, but your defense just sucks, so maybe you're down the last time you score in the 4th, and you're like, hey, don't worry, we don't even need the defense to mess around on the field. Let's keep the offense out there. And like you said, they could just go back to back to back and scoring with the defense never even seeing the field. And I don't like that aspect. Like you said, an onside kick, 4% chance, but it's a chance. Like an onside kick, that's what you got to do. That's the way the game should work. You score, you let the other team get a chance to score. Like it's the same principle in pickup basketball when it's make it, take it. I hate playing make it, take it basketball because if you just scored, you should be on defense now. You shouldn't be back on offense, allowed to just score again,
Yeah, I agree 100%. I don't know. These are some funky rules, man. I know they had rules like this back in 2020 when they first inaugural season, but I feel like The Rock's like, let me put my own spin on this. And I enjoy it because, like, nobody likes Roger Goodell. And then, like, you pull out the XFL and then everybody loves The Rock. So I don't know. I really like the XFL. I hope they can keep going. I think, like, one of the momentum spans of the XFL that will need to happen is a conversion with the USFL. And guess what? Convert with the CFL too. Get some, that's another, not European, but that's another country. CFL, make a ground rule for this. And then you have 24 teams that can actually compete with the NFL. Because, like, the hard thing that I have with this right now is there's all the superstars that played in college that are in the NFL, right? Well, in the XFL, they're competing with 2 other entities. They're competing with the USFL and they're competing with the CFL because for the longest time, if you didn't make it in the NFL, you went up to Canada. And that's been, like, the biggest thing forever. So why don't you guys just combine all 3 at this point, make it to 24 teams, maybe put 8 more expansion teams in, and maybe the NFL will buy you guys as a minor league or a G League system, and then you can have that, maybe not relegation, but you can have that call-up. Every team has, like, a certain team. And
that could be the perfect opportunity or the chance also to start expanding the NFL or just football in general a little bit more nationally. Like if you pull the CFL in, that's Canadian football. You're now not in the United States. And if you did do promotions and relegations, maybe we have a couple of NFL teams that are based in Canada as well. And it'd still be a far step to be able to try to get something in Europe, like we said, with all the flying that you'd have to do and the travel, and it would be a little weird.
Yeah.
But even just bringing Canada in is that kind of first step of, hey, we're going international now. Like we have a Canadian team. Maybe we'll someday see a team in Mexico, like a Mexico City team. So if you pulled the CFL and you merged with the XFL and the USFL, that would be kind of the first step in my mind of, hey, we're going to internationalize this football league.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it would work perfectly with like where we are as like the NFL. Like, and I hate to like correlate 2 different sports, but basketball, Max McClung, he just won the NBA dunk title. And he was a G League player. He was a G League player, and he just won the NBA dunk title. And he was in the Rising Showcase. Like, and guess what? That's a product of G Leagues. That's a product. You're going to have some quarterback, maybe like Ben DiNucci, that made it to the NFL right away, and then he's like, I'm not good yet. I need to mature. And then go. That's what happened to Kurt Warner when they had like the NFL Europe team. They had NFL Europe back in the late 90s. Kurt Warner was not good enough to play in the NFL coming out of UNI. He ended up coming and going to play for Berlin and like blossomed. And then guess what? The Rams took a chance on him. Injury goes down. He wins MVP that year. Like, there's so many success stories with G Leagues. I am surprised the NFL hasn't even done it.
For sure. And we could be moving toward that. And I love the thought of it. I'm kind of excited to see where it goes. It could potentially get really crazy really fast with, like we said, logistics of different things and the changes that we'll see. But I think it'd be exciting. Moving on from this little XFL spin, we'll get into some of our regular college/NFL football news. And speaking of rule changes, they have proposed 4 new rules in college football that kind of help keep the clock running. So I'm going to go through those 4 rules in the same kind of order, lowest impact to biggest impact. Very first rule being no consecutive timeouts. So icing a kicker, you can do it once, you can take a timeout, but after that, you're not allowed to call a second or a third timeouts. They're getting rid of consecutive timeouts. Thoughts?
I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. I think icing the kicker is a nation's like the NFL's pastime. I feel like it's been in
this is college.
Well, or college pastime. Like, I feel like icing the kicker is so important. Like, just for like a fan standpoint. Like, I feel like NFL coaches and kickers, we've mentioned this so many times. Kickers are head cases. This is taking out an advantage that a other head coach, like a opponent head coach, has to mess with the kicker. I don't know. I don't like it. What do you think?
I disagree. I like this rule. It's super, super minimal impact. This is just one of those things that at the end of a game, you know, if this kick is going to tie up or win a game, I don't need to sit around for however long it would take, 5 minutes, while the other team calls 3 timeouts in a row. Like, you're saying icing the kicker, you can still ice the kicker. You can call a timeout. Like, the kicker can, you know, they're getting set up for their whatever, their kick, their field goal attempt, and you can call a timeout. You can ice the kicker. That still exists. You just can't sit there for 5 minutes straight calling timeout after timeout after timeout, which has always driven me absolutely crazy. So I'm in full support of this rule.
Yeah, I guess I agree into like a stance of this. Like, I don't like consecutive timeouts on it, but I do like that occasional, okay, let's ice the kicker, because I do think it gets in their head. I mean, and I know this is college rule, but I can't come up with an example right now for college. But I know Cody Parkey in 2018, his first field goal was good until Doug Peterson iced us. So, and then that's when the double doink occurred. I think kickers are just very big head cases, and that's just kind of where we're at with this. Cool.
And they are, but also there is, to some degree, like we said, you can still ice a kicker once, and so you can still have that happen. You can still get in their heads the one time you ice them. They kick the first one. Maybe they missed the first. Because I had it in college when I was a student coach. We had a game where we were down by 2 points, and we were kicking a field goal. They iced our kicker, and he actually missed it on when they iced him. When he went and kicked and they iced it, we actually missed. When we kicked it the second time, he made it. So that team just, you know, kind of screwed themselves over. Like, hey, thanks for the second chance. Like, F you guys. But so, I mean, a part of me in my head is it gets in the kicker's head a little bit, maybe, of some kickers. But for the most part, I would say by the time you're an NFL kicker, especially, well, granted, this is college, but most kickers, high caliber, really good kickers, it's not going to phase them. They kick like 50 kicks in practice all the time. They just kicked one. You iced them. They're going to go kick again. They're going to do their job. They're going to go get done what they got to get done. If they're having a bad day, they definitely start getting in their heads. They start overworking it and whatever, blah, blah, blah. If not, they're just going to do what they do, and they're going to kick the ball. So that's my take on it. I'm for this rule. I like it. Along with the second rule, I'm pro this second rule. Second rule is there will be no untimed down at the end of the first or the third quarter. So, you have a penalty that happens and the clock hits 0 or something. They don't do an untimed down. They're just going to move that penalty and that redo or whatever to the second or fourth. Now, it's one thing if you're going into halftime or ending the game. Obviously, that play is crucial to that moment because you don't just come back out and start where you left off after those. So those remain. But at the end of the first or the third, it doesn't really matter. That down's just going to be at the start of the second or the fourth, and we're going to get that clock moving again. What do you think?
No, I feel like this doesn't really affect college football really to a sense. I mean, like you said, if it was in the second or fourth quarter, then it would. But in the first or the third, it doesn't because it's just going to roll over to the next quarter. I mean, the other thing that I could see, though, you flip sides of the field each quarter. So if you did get like a 10-yard penalty and it pushes you like and you're going with the wind and it turns into like 4th and 12 and it was 4th and 2, it was going to be an easy field goal. Then I could see it coming into situation because you're going to flip the field and then you're going to go against the wind and that turns into a punting situation at that point. So I could see some logistics with it and where coaches have to like plan for and predict situations that could occur because of it. But I mean, I feel like it's kind of a meaningless regulation that I don't think anybody would be too mad if it was placed.
Definitely. I agree. And for the most part, yeah, if you had to flip sides of the field, that could potentially, like you said, change a situation of a field goal to a punt. But like you also said, I think that would just have to become something that coaches kind of plan for, kind of take into account. Even defenses committing the penalties, you could almost think, hey, right now they're going for a field goal, but there's 1 second left. Let's intentionally have a penalty. Let's line up off sides or something. You would need to do something where the clock runs, but hey, let's get a penalty. Let's get a hands to the face or something and make them re-kick it into the wind. So that could actually become a strategy for defenses going into those second or fourth quarters. And parts of me is like, I don't know if I love that, but at the same time, I don't mind it as far as just washing it up to, well, that's a part of the game. Like, oh, it's unfair that there's a penalty committed and you have to flip sides and both, like, that's a part of the game, it's just one of those things that's like, hey, as a head coach, that's just one of your responsibilities to understand and to utilize and to, play the game how it's going to be played. But both of these couple rules are pretty minor details. They're things that, frankly, in the span of shortening a game, don't shorten it all that much outside of very specific situations. The next couple of rules that I'll go through are actually huge as far as shortening games and just changing football altogether. The first one being that the clock will run after a first down, except for within 2 minutes of the half. So typically, for those of you who don't know, when a team gets a first down, the clock is stopped until the ball is spotted wherever they got the first down while the chains move and all that stuff. With this rule, the clock would never stop while they spot the ball and move the chains and all of that. It would just keep running the entire time as if they had just run the ball and been down without a first down. What do you think of that one?
hold on. So, an average college football game time length is about 3 hours and 24 minutes. So, I feel like this would significantly make games a lot quicker. Less commercials, which is good for the average football fan. Players are going to be a little more gassed because the ball's going to keep running. I mean, but time management's going to be crucial at this point. Like, that first quarter is going to fly. If it's consecutive, I mean, yeah, I feel like there's going to be a lot of plays gear-oriented to the sideline. So plays can end out of bounds so the clock stops. But I think this would significantly change the whole game of college football. I could see the NFL moving to this also, because then, guess what? They could expand the league, because then they're going to have more airtime throughout. So I think like this is going to be like a huge like changing point in college football.
Yeah, this is one that I am a little bit back and forth on. I think that typically this is kind of minor, but also kind of huge, because there are a lot more situations where first down, stopping the clock while your guys run up while the ball is set and all that jet. Like, you have a lot of time to like, hey, let's get up to the line, let's get ready, and even let's get ready to spike it or something. Whereas now, if you get that first down, even with 5 seconds left, you're probably running out of those 5 seconds while you're running up to it. This definitely is one that is going to speed up the game, because there's a lot of situations where you're not in a huge rush to get up and get on the ball and get moving. And I support it from that sense. Like, I support the notion of like, hey, we got a first down. There's really no need to stop the clock. Like, you're in the first quarter, you're 7 minutes in, you just got a first down on a change of possession or something. There's no need to stop the clock while the ball is spotted. I support letting that continue to go. And I also just realized I misspoke a little bit. Under 2 minutes, it does stop. So in those crucial situations, like we're talking, like coming down 5 seconds left, you need a first down, it does stop when you're under 2 minutes in the second and the fourth. So
another thing that just came to my mind with this rule change, you're going to see so many more upsets. Because guess what? They're going to control the ball. They're going to try to control the ball most of the game and just run the clock. Because, like, why wouldn't you? If you're a 21-point underdog, you're University of Alabama, Birmingham facing Alabama, and for some reason Alabama fumbled the ball on the first possession and you returned it for a touchdown, and you're up 7-0 and you can get a field goal on your first possession, you're up 10-0 against one of the best teams in the country. I could see this being a signifying point of more upsets producing because of it.
I'm not sure I totally agree with that. Because from a team standpoint, you can do that anyway. You know, you can take as long as you want with the football in the first play. You could either run on all 4 of your downs and the clock's going to keep moving. You can do short pat. Like, to me, nothing changes. Like, if you're trying to run out the clock, that's great. There are ways to run out the clock now. This just makes, I'd say, like a 5 to 10 second difference every first down. So throughout the course of the game, it can, you know, somewhat significantly shorten the game up a little bit. But at the same time, 5 to 10 seconds, Alabama, Birmingham versus Alabama, like, that's not going to be an upset. They're not going to hold on to the ball long enough and stop Alabama for, like, it's just, that's not going to be the case. You know, if you are that much of an underdog, having or being able to run out the clock for 5-10 more seconds, it's not going to matter.
Well, and then that was just the example, but you could also say Alabama versus Mississippi State, actual true SEC team. Like, I feel like it makes the game a little more even on perspectives like that. I don't know.
I don't think it does, because it goes both ways too. It may be one thing if you could say that Mississippi could run out the clock more than Alabama could, but it doesn't. Like the time changes for both teams. Like both teams are going to have less time of possession technically, or maybe it would technically be longer time of possessions because the clock wouldn't stop. But both teams are going to be changing equally. So in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it necessarily changes anything. You know, like Mississippi could run out the clock more by having the ball longer, but Alabama will also have the ball longer and arguably even longer than Mississippi because they're going to get more first down throughout the game while the clock continues to run on each of those first downs.
Yeah. And that's true. I mean, I like to hear the other perspective on things, so I think that's like a great idea, a great perspective on it. So
yeah, this is the one that it changes a lot, but also I don't have a huge issue with it. Like it would significantly reduce the time without significantly changing the game too much. I think I kind of like this one a little bit from a let's shorten the game a little and get it like this one I can kind of support. I don't have a huge bone to pick with it. The last one that they're proposing, I hate. I absolutely hate. Can't say. I don't think anyone's gonna just listen to this. The last one, the clock is going to keep running on an incomplete pass once the ball is spotted. So that one is the one that I'm like, okay, no. Like I was good up until now, but with that one, no. Like, and there's no time regulations. This one's not a like under 2 minutes it'll still stop or anything. This one's just straight up. Whole game. Incomplete pass. Once the ball is spotted, clock continues. That's bullshit. That's not how football works. That's a no for me.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. I mean, if there's an incomplete pass, it should stop. The clock should stop. So, I mean, I don't really have much on it. I don't think it'll get approved, but like I think it would affect the game like tremendously. Like we were talking about this last one. Like I think this would tremendously affect the game even more than the last.
Well, this is the one that would actually be huge in affecting the game because you have to think too that what happens with spiking the ball. You know, like you get a long first down. There is 5 seconds left or something. You want to kick a field goal. You spike the ball to stop the clock to get your field goal unit out on the field. Like, is that possible? Are you just do you have to throw a timeout at it now? Are you allowed to spike it like that? Because, like, that's the biggest change in this. Is this aside from just the clock continuing to move throughout the game? You like what happens with spiking the ball? That's a huge strategic move in football that would not exist anymore.
Yeah, or throwing the ball out of bounds.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, throwing the ball. Because I know a lot of quarterbacks, they would rather throw the ball out of bounds than take a sack because the clock still runs on a sack. Like, yeah, you don't get hit, but what's the point at that point? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Exactly. And so, this is the one that I just am entirely against. I don't think it'll happen. The question, like you said, like, oh, this one will never get approved is, do they have to approve all 4 of these? Or could they approve the first 3 and say, yeah, but not this one? That's where I'm kind of curious of, like, is this an all or nothing rule proposal? Or do you think there's a potential that they could take the first 3 and leave out that last one?
I think there could be a potential of, like, taking out like the last one. I mean, were they all like, so I don't know much about this, right? I didn't hear about the rule changes. Did they put in these petitions all together as like a group, or like how did this come about?
I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure. I just know that these are the 4 that they're contemplating passing. I don't know if they were petitioned all together or individually or how that would work exactly. That's why I'm a little curious because that last one would be huge. Like if you support the first 3 and not the last one and they're all together, that's going to have a huge impact on how people are going to vote, you know?
For sure. Yeah, no. And I don't like it. I mean, I don't like change. So I don't really like any of it. But I definitely do not like incomplete and the ball or the clock keeps running. Like it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, that I full agreement. That one I'm not about. That one I don't want passed. That one is an absolute no from me. The other three I can do. The first two I think should happen. The first two I think should just automatically, they should be approved. They should go in. No consecutive timeouts, no one time down in the first and third, whatever. It's a super, super minimal thing. Doesn't really change much. Yeah, pass them. That's great. I like it. The third one, I wouldn't hate it. It would be all right by me. It would change the game a little bit, but within reason in my head. The fourth one, no. That now you're changing the game beyond reason, and that's just like you said with the XFL being a semi-pro leading into the pro, and how they should have similar rules. I know there's different rules between college and NFL, but if you start changing that kind of timing rule, that's a huge difference jumping from college to NFL, where it's like, hey, on incompletions, the clock still runs. Oh, that doesn't happen in the NFL, though. That's a completely different thing. That, to me, that would almost change a little bit too much when you're moving on to that next level.
For sure. Like I said with the XFL, I think definitely like they need to keep things consistent. They need to keep things consistent because high school is similar to college. One foot in, bounce, like stuff like that. Similar rules. I really think they need to keep things consistent on all three phases of the football. Football.
Definitely. We're going to move on now. This has been a really long episode so far, so we're going to get rolling a little bit, but we're going to move into our college basketball update. So Iowa's been disappointing me a little bit lately, the past couple of games. We lost against Northwestern, 80-60. Northwestern is now ranked 21st now. I think they're second or third in the Big Ten. It somewhere in there with Purdue, Indiana, and Northwestern. Those are kind of the top three in the Big Ten right now. Everybody else is kind of hanging around in that middle pack, and then you have a couple at the bottom with Ohio State and Wisconsin. Speaking of Wisconsin, Iowa also lost to Wisconsin, 64-52. That's probably our most pathetic performance all year. 52 points. That's just sad. That is heartbreaking. We are supposed to be known as an offensive team. I know everyone always talks like Iowa has offense. Iowa is the offensive juggernaut of basketball, blah, blah, blah. Apparently, I think we're ranked in the top 25 offensively. But I've also seen they've been talking a lot about our statistics as far as our shooting percentages from home game versus away/neutral games. And it is appalling the difference in shooting, especially 3 points, between home and away. We have somewhere around a 45% shooting percentage for threes at home and somewhere around 25% away. Most teams are going to have that where you shoot a little better at home than you do someone else's court, but that is just a gigantic difference. I mean, I don't remember the exact stats, but we were like 3 for 20 or something on threes in the Wisconsin game. It was absolutely ridiculous. Next game happened just yesterday against Michigan State, finally back at home, but our shooting woes were continuing. We, in the first half, were just shooting the same way we were at Wisconsin. It was absolutely horrible. I was getting really, really upset. I was frustrated as all hell watching us just miss 3 after 3 after 3. I'm a big believer in letting your shooter shoot. You know, like you're a shooter, get in rhythm, keep taking them. You're going to sink them at some point. But after you miss so many, a part of you has to think, stop taking threes. Rebraca was initially having a great game. He was going to town in the paint. He was 5 for 5 on his first 5 shots, and he was just posting up on Michigan State. For some reason, we went completely away from that. and we were just missing threes, and it was really upsetting me. I almost turned off this game. The second half, not halfway through the half, but like toward the end of the game, there was only like 5 minutes or something left, and I almost turned this game off. We were down double digits. The biggest deficit we had was 13 points. We were down by 13 points with 94 seconds left in the game. I almost stopped watching, but I am so glad I didn't. Because at that point, our luck started to turn around a little bit. Sanford, I don't know how many threes he actually hit, but he just started nailing them. Like back to back to back, was just nailing threes. And so were some of the other guys. I think Chris Murray had a couple. Tony Perkins had a couple. It was awesome. And from that 13-point deficit, we hit 5 consecutive threes to tie the game up 101-101 by the time that the clock hit 0. So we went into overtime. I was absolutely losing my mind. And the person who did it, of course, Peyton Sanford. He actually had the chance to win us the game against Michigan State, or the chance to tie it up at the very end the first time we played them, and he missed a 3. This time, he came down on a missed 3 throw and nailed it, sending it into overtime. Luckily, in that overtime, we came out on top 112-106. I'm happy for 2 reasons. One, we won the game. Wasn't the prettiest of win, but in the second half, we were able to pull it out. 2, we finally broke 100 points again. After having a horrid performance at Wisconsin and only scoring 52 points, we finally came out and had another 100-point game, and I am so excited for it. But now I'm also very, very nervous. There's only 2 games left for us, and that first one is going to be against number 17 ranked Indiana. Not only against number 17 Indiana, but we're playing at Indiana. And like I just said, we do not perform well when we're away. So, yeah, we did beat Indiana the first time we played them, but that was so long ago. And I mean, we beat Northwestern the first time too, and look how that turned out. We lost the second time, so I'm not the utmost hopeful. Our last game will be against Nebraska next Sunday. I'll talk more about that when we record next time. But what are your thoughts on this current trajectory of Iowa's late season?
I thought we would be hotter than we are. Dropping those 2 games against Northwestern and Wisconsin really hurt us. But I also think we got a lot of momentum coming up with this big win against Michigan State. I mean, down by 13 with 94 seconds to go is insane. So if we can pull this off against Indiana and then finish the year at Nebraska, I think it's at Nebraska, correct?
I don't remember. I'd have to look.
Okay. If we can pull off that, I know I saw a statistic I know March Madness is still about a month away, but right now we are projected the 9th seed in March Madness.
We are going to play at home against Nebraska. So
okay.
Yep. But no, going into March Madness, we could pull it off against Indiana. I would love to finish the year on a 3-game win streak. That would help us a ton. I think we'll definitely make the bracket. We do have a good handful of quad 1 wins. So, I mean, like I said, we beat Indiana the first time already. We've beat Rutgers twice. We've beat Michigan State now, although I don't know if they're quad 1 exactly. But we have a handful of quad 1 wins. And so we do have a good resume for making the tournament. I don't think we make it past the first round, though, because we do get hot at the end of the year. But like you said, this is not as hot as we should be. Like Wisconsin, we can't drop it to Wisconsin. We just they are 3-11 or something. That just sucked. So I think we could make it past the first round if we were seeded high enough. Unfortunately, like you said, kind of predicting the 9 seed right now, I think we take a loss to Indiana. We're not going to be seeded high enough to go against an easy enough opponent. I don't think we are having our greatest season. Thankfully, we have a winning record. We're not doing horribly. I'm curious to see how we'll do in the Big Ten tournament. That one's a huge question mark to me right now because with just some of the losses that we've had to, Wisconsin, Northwestern, Purdue, I think we'll probably lose to Indiana. I don't think we're going to make it super far in the Big Ten tournament, and I don't think we make it past the first round of March Madness. Excited to be a part of it, excited to make the bracket, but I don't have the highest hopes for moving past that this season.
And I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I feel like when we have a good season, we don't make it far in March Madness. Like, I feel like we lost in round of 32 last year?
Yes.
Yeah, and we had one of the best seasons we've had. We, won the Big Ten title. I mean, I feel like no one respects us. I feel like they feel that, and I feel like they know that they are capable of winning these big games, that they've proved this year that we can win some big games. So I feel like we're just really young. I think that's another part of it. Very young team. But I think I don't think we make it to Sweet 16, but I think we surprise people in round of 64, upset, and I think we win. I think it's a close game, but we lose in round of 32. And we get as far as we did last year. And on the off chance we make it to the Sweet 16, that would be incredible, but we would get demolished right when we got there.
Yeah, like I said, there's a chance we could win that first round, especially if we do come out hot. We're not that young of a team. Most of the guys playing right now have been playing for a year or two at least. Rebracha is a fifth-year senior. I think Chris Murray is a junior. Tony Perkins, I think, is a junior or a senior. Connor McCaffrey is a senior. We're not that young of a team. We're actually a fairly experienced, notable team. I mean, look at last year. Almost all these same guys, minus a Keegan Murray and Jordan Bohannon, were all still playing and all still here last year. The youngest of the two, or the youngest of the team, are the couple of freshmen that we kind of rotate in a little bit. But all outside of that, we're all upperclassmen. So we're not really that young, especially Rebracha. That's going to be the big one. That's the one I'm worried about, is we're going to lose Rebracha next season. So I'm worried about that. I do not have high hopes for next season, especially if Chris Murray goes too. If we lose Chris Murray to the NBA draft and we lose Rebracha, that's going to be rough.
Yeah, it's going to be rebuild. And there's nothing wrong with rebuild. We're Bears fans. We're used to that.
The Bears have been in a rebuild for like 5 years.
Unfortunately.
But anyway, we'll wrap things up now with a little quick NBA update. Speaking of Keegan Murray, my Kings are 34-25. They're still number 3 in the West. They're on a 2-game win streak right now. They just beat the Trailblazers and the Clippers these past couple games. Next up, they will play at the Thunder, both today, later tonight, and on Tuesday. Because once again, the NBA just likes to play the same team back-to-back for no reason. So,
yeah. So my Bucks are second in the East right now. We're on a 13-game win streak. Our last game was 128-99. What if we meet in the finals? We do meet March 13th.
Yep.
We do meet. Sacramento Kings play Milwaukee. I think it's in Milwaukee. So that's going to be an exciting game.
I'm going to have to actually tune in for that one. That's going to have to be the first NBA game I actually sit down and watch this season.
Oh, man. So I'm excited. I mean, it's definitely going to be interesting seeing if the Bucks can keep this win streak without Giannis. Giannis is still out, so out another week and a half recovery time. So I need Giannis to get back healthy. But I'm surprised we did pull it off against the Heat. Oh, and also I forgot to mention Kevin Love, perennial all-star, was signed by the Heat, and he started last night against Milwaukee. Played decent. I think he didn't have that many points. I didn't watch the game last night. This is the first Bucks game I haven't watched in a while because I was watching XFL. But I think I want to talk about the NBA All-Star week real quick. Max McClung stole the show. I mentioned it earlier. I'm sorry, I have Liam that wants to steal the show right now. He stole the show being the first G League player to win the NBA Slam Dunk Contest. And the East pulled it off for the NBA All-Star Game. And I just think the NBA All-Star Game, they do it right. Because you know why the Pro Bowl has so many issues and the All-Star Game doesn't? Because the winner of the East and the West get home field advantage in the finals. I like that. I like that aspect of things. Like, you get home field advantage in the finals. So if the East wins, they get home field advantage. And they do it halfway through the year. So, like, teams are like, okay, well, we still got a shot to make the finals. And so, like, when their all-stars go, they're playing their best performance they can play. Same with Major League Baseball. When they do their all-star game, it's whoever wins out of the NL or AL, they get home field advantage. And series games, like best out of seven, that's really huge. And that's that's why the NFL struggles, because there's no real home field advantage in the Super Bowl. So, but yeah, that's just my take on it. But that's kind of my NBA talk for today. Do you got anything on that with the All-Star Game?
No, I think it's about time we wrap this up. It's been a pretty long episode. There's been a lot. There's been a lot to discuss this time. So we'll see you guys next week. Just a little update. We're going to start regularly coming out with episodes over the weekend. So it's going to be around later Saturday, early Saturday. We're going to start having episodes coming out on Saturdays. So stay tuned for that. And Avery, sign us off.
You want to sign out? All right, guys. I got 3 things. Go Keegan Murray, Fear the Deer, and Bear Down.